You look at these things in the museums now, the Shermans, they look like toys, don't they? Painted all nice, clean, no oil leaking out at the final drive, no smell of 5 men who haven't showered in 3 weeks, living in a steel box. But back in 44, in the bocage of Normandy, that toy was the only thing between me and a very permanent sleep in a French ditch. People ask me, Dutch, did you ever miss a shot on purpose? And I tell them, when you're staring down the throat of a 70-ton tiger, you don't miss because you're clumsy. You miss because it's the only way to stay alive long enough to hit M back. See the history books, the Wikipedia pages, the documentaries. They talk about penetration values. They'll tell you that my M4 Sherman had a 75mm M3 gun. They'll tell you that at 500 yards, I could maybe punch through 80mm of steel. Now, you take a German Panther. That big cat had a glacis plate. That's the front armor, about 80mm thick, too. But the Germans weren't fools. They sloped that steel at 55 degrees. You do the math or let the shell do it. That 80mm becomes 140mm of effective thickness real quick. My 75mm shell. It'd hit that panther and skitter off like a pebble hitting a frozen pond. Clang. That's the sound of your death warrant. Because once you hit M and don't hurt M, they know exactly where you are. And that German 7.5 centimeters KWK-42 high-velocity gun, it didn't care about our slope. It went through us like a hot needle through wax. So we're sitting there, 3rd platoon. We see a tiger eye cresting a ridge near Villiers-Bocage. He's 1,000 yards out. He looks like a gray brick wall with a long, mean pipe sticking out of it. My gunner, a kid from Kentucky we called Peanut, he looks at me through the turret. He says, Sarge, we can't pen him from here. We'll just wake him up. I told him, I don't want to pen him. I want to bury him. Peanut, load he. Fire short. 50 yards in front of his tracks. Now, you gotta understand the ammo. Most people think we just had bullets for tanks. We had a PCB, C-armor, piercing capped, ballistic cap for the kills. But we also carried M48 high explosive shells. 1.5 pounds of TNT inside a steel casing. Peanut pulled the trigger. WHAM. The whole Sherman rocked back on its bogies. We didn't hit the tiger. We hit the dry, French dirt right in his face. When a 75mm he-shell hits dry earth, it isn't like the movies. It's not a fireball. It's a mountain of black soot, pulverized stone, and thick, choking dust that reaches up 50 feet into the air. For those Germans inside that tiger, the world just turned black. Their optics as fancy eyesights they bragged about were covered in grit and shadow. They couldn't see us. They couldn't see the hedge. They were a 60-ton giant, suddenly gone stone blind. That was our window. That intentional miss bought us exactly 12 seconds. I kicked the back of our driver's seat. Move it, Miller. Left flank. Find the gap. The Sherman had one thing the Germans did UNT, a power-to-weight ratio that let us move like a middleweight boxer. We did UNT have the interleaved road wheels like the Tiger. Those things were a nightmare if a rock got stuck in M. We had the VV's S vertical volute spring suspension, reliable, fast, while that Tiger was rotating its turret blindly, trying to find where that shot came from. We were pouring diesel. We redlined that Continental R975 engine. We weren't a tank anymore. We were a ghost in the smoke. We didn't go for his front. No, sir. We went for the flank. The side armor on a Tiger was only about 60 millimeters. My 75 millimeters could handle 60 millimeters. By the time the dust settled from our miss, we were 300 yards to his left. He was still looking at the ridge where we used to be. I told Peanut, AP, side hull, below the sponson hump. The loader, a big guy from Chicago, slammed that brass casing hum. The breech closed with a sound like a vault door. Peanut didn't miss the second one. That's why the intentional miss wasn't a mistake. It was a trade. We traded one shell for the one thing you can't buy in a war. Time. We turned their strengths, their heavy armor, into a weakness by taking away their eye.